Welcome to the debate. We are diving into the high-stakes political landscape of Tamil Nadu today. Specifically, we're dissecting the recent campaign activity by Vijay and the TVK. You know, with the 2026 elections now only about 6 months away, every public address is effectively a political missile test.
In that incredibly tight timeline, well, it really sharpens our focus on the Namakkal speech, doesn't it? It was a critical, high-profile moment in the campaign, one that introduced a potentially explosive new narrative, but, well, seemed to struggle considerably on the ground level.
Absolutely. Our analysis of the material, it really reveals a profound tension at Namakkal. On one side, you have what looks like a strategic masterstroke, this explicit, quite disruptive claim that DMK equals BJP due to some alleged underground dealing. I mean, this is a fundamental reversal of the established political calculus in the state.
But on the other side, the consensus among observers, and critics too, was that the speech itself was ranked notably lower than previous events. Lower than, say, Thiruvar or Ari Allur. And the reasons cited were pretty clear. Flaws in technical execution, poor logistical flow, and what many viewed as, frankly, a failure to capitalize on a major vulnerability of the ruling party.
Right. And this brings us right to the core question for today. Was the Namakkal speech in the end a net success? A necessary and potent strategic step in shifting the political foundation? Or was its efficacy severely compromised by those acknowledged flaws in its delivery and execution? My position is that the core strategic message achieved maximum political impact, and any delivery flaws are, well, secondary, perhaps even tertiary to that monumental shift in narrative.
And I suppose I come at it from a different angle. I believe that in this, hyper-competitive 24/7 media environment we're in, strategy is really only as powerful as its presentation allows it to be. The compromised execution and the, frankly, list of missed opportunities, I think they substantially reduced the speech's immediate effectiveness and limited its ultimate political reach, especially among that crucial undecided voter base.
Okay, but let's maybe look at the long game for a second, because that's where I really think the value of Namakkal lies. The speech introduced, as we said, a potentially game-changing political narrative. It did this by asserting the DMK equals BJP claim. Now, for years, the DMK's primary winning formula, particularly back in 2021, has been based on fear, right? The anti-BJP stance. They very successfully framed themselves as the only shield against perceived northern influence.
And that has been a remarkably effective shield. I grant you that absolutely.
Exactly. So Vijay Anna's move here is therefore, well, I'd say revolutionary. He directly counters that entire framework by alleging that voting for the DMK is functionally the same as supporting the BJP. He hints at transactional politics, this alleged underground dealing, or maybe a vote transfer mechanism between the parties. This forces the DMK onto the defensive. It compels them to spend weeks, maybe months, justifying why they are not aligned with the BJP.
Strategically, okay, the move is brilliant on paper. I can see that. It disrupts the established polarity, and yes, for the first time, it applies the anti-BJP weapon against the party that basically invented it as a campaign strategy. But here's the flaw, as I see it. The immediate political dividend is diminished if the delivery's poor. Now, we know this message landed on some level. Observers did notice spike in crowd decibel levels when the DMK attacks began.
But that spike demonstrates resonance, doesn't it? It shows the core strategic attack connected powerfully with the intended audience. The TVK now has a unique political footing that sort of bypasses the old DMK-ADMK rivalry. This shift, placing DMK in the same adversarial column as the BJP, is arguably the single most important action taken by TVK to date.
I see why you emphasize that high-level strategy. But let's talk about execution for a moment, because the consensus really suggests the overall impact was noticeably dampened. The speech was ranked low precisely because of these technical flow issues, including, problems with the microphone, a failure that the speaker himself acknowledged right there on stage, noting his rhythm had, quote, slipped. I mean, when you are trying to deliver a strategic masterpiece, you really cannot afford technical mediocrity.
Well, technical issues are often unavoidable in these massive outdoor rallies, aren't they? Especially given the rapid mobilization required. But focusing solely on the rhythm, I think it ignores the crucial strategic context of where this message was deployed. Namakkal and Karur, these are key entry points to the Kongu region. This is arguably the most decisive swing area in the state. It's where elections are often won and lost, historically swinging between the Dravidian parties.
While the location choice is astute, yes, the campaign made what I see as a critical error in choosing its battles once they were actually on that stage. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the execution was secondary when they deliberately seemed to miss a clear, high-impact target. I'm referring, of course, to the very serious allegation of kidney theft connected to a DMK MLA's hospital.
They certainly bypassed a detailed discussion of that specific hospital scandal, yes.
They glossed over it, that's the point. The specific accusation against a ruling party MLA, a serious allegation involving potential health fraud, it had already gained significant traction within politically informed circles. You know, individuals following commentators like Sadai Durai Morgan or Savu Shankar, they were primed for the TVK campaign to take this high-stakes moral failing and use it as undeniable leverage against the DMK's governance claims.
That's a compelling argument. I see the point. But have you considered the strategic risk there, relying heavily on a single, potentially quite complex scandal, particularly one concerning specific medical allegations? It runs the risk of getting bogged down in legal counterattacks, or perhaps appearing too specialized, maybe too niche.
I think that risk is negligible compared to the reward of seizing a genuinely shocking issue, one that transcends typical political bickering. Instead of capturing the public imagination with a severe governance failure, the speech focused heavily on listing generalized broken promises. The failure to build a monument for Subbarayan, that was Promise 456, I believe, failure to provide grain storage, Promise 50, or failure to sell basic consumables like jaggery and coconut oil through ration shops, Promises 66 and 68.
Okay, I appreciate the focus on the local connection there, but I'd argue that focusing on these specific numbered promises provided tangible, undeniable examples of DMK governance failure directly relevant to the core Kongu audience. This is an agricultural region after all. Issues like grain storage and the failure to buy local copra coconut oil and jaggery, these directly impact their economic lives, their livelihoods.
You're making the case for grassroots relevance, I understand. But there's just a massive difference in political impact between they didn't buy our jaggery and this ruling party MLA is allegedly connected to an organ harvesting scandal. I mean, the former limits your reach to a specific economic niche, the latter potentially captures statewide outrage and could dominate national media coverage. They chose minor, generalized critique over a potential seismic moral failure. That seems like a missed opportunity.
I'm not entirely convinced by that line of reasoning, because the strategy here, I believe, was about building a durable critique, not relying on maybe a flash-in-the-pan scandal. Focusing on multiple, numbered, concrete failures demonstrated a comprehensive critique. It established a broader, more tangible base for their entire governance attack, reinforcing the long game against the DMK.
But the execution was compromised even on those local fronts. The event itself was reportedly marred by logistical issues. You had boards collapsing, narrow access points, crowd control failures, which creates a visually negative perception that undermines the seriousness of the campaign, regardless of whether the core strategy is sound.
I have to return to the revolutionary nature of the DMK equals BJP claim and the context of the location. The choice of Namakkal and Karur, it was deliberate. This is hostile ground, an area currently viewed as being strongly influenced by ex-minister Senthil Balaji. And the crowd showed immense commitment. The fact that, 20 kilometers of movement took nearly 3 hours, that demonstrates a huge turnout and a real willingness to engage.
But that willingness is precisely why the delivery failures are so egregious. When the crowd shows that level of commitment, traveling, 6 kilometers an hour just to get to the rally, they demand and frankly, they deserve peak performance. When the speaker himself acknowledges the rhythm slip due to mic cuts, that's not a minor glitch. That's sacrificing the very momentum that dedicated audience provided you.
Look, the enduring utility of the speech is tied to the long-term structural change it represents. Landing the DMK equals BJP bomb in this pivotal swing region, regardless of a temporary mic failure, secures the strategy's primary objective:
establishing the core argument that TVK will carry throughout the 2026 campaign. They planted a flag.
They planted a flag, perhaps, but they planted it on wobbly ground. The complexity of mounting an effective political challenge, it just means you have to be excellent on both the strategic and the operational fronts. When you fail to seize the most severe known accusation, the kidney scandal, and simultaneously struggle with basic logistics and technical flow, you fail to maximize that high-stakes political moment. You risk looking amateurish, which can be fatal in a swing region like Kongu.
Ultimately, the structural challenge posed by weaponizing the anti-BJP sentiment against the DMK, that is the Namakkal speech's lasting legacy, in my view. This macro-level strategic shift positions TVK as the genuine alternative for 2026, regardless of poor stage management on the day.
And conversely, while the strategic intent was undeniable and powerful, politics is also about perception and conversion. The technical flaws, the missed high-impact opportunities, and the resultant lower ranking, while they suggest the speech failed to convert that radical strategy into widespread, immediate, and high-quality public support.
So, this debate really highlights the constant critical tension, doesn't it, between macro-level political strategy on one hand and micro-level campaign execution on the other, especially in a hyper-competitive field like Tamil Nadu politics.
Indeed. And the ultimate success of this audacious strategy, well, it's going to be determined entirely by how the DMK chooses to respond to this allegation of being in an underground dealing with the BJP in the coming weeks and months. That reaction will either solidify TVK's strategic footing or, potentially, expose the weakness created by its flawed delivery at Namakkal.